Rev up your engines. Okay, to all of you who have accused me of being a Toyota fanboy who gets paid by Toyota to say how good their vehicles are, it just ain't the truth. Here's a man who bought this vehicle about a year and a half after he bought it. Check it out. The mirror has warped from being out in the sun. The pillars have also warped, the plastic there. And this is not a cheap Camry, it's an X Series SE. It's a beautiful looking car. Except, as you can see, this pillar is warped. And this one isn't melted as much, but you can still see it is melting, especially here. It hasn't been wrecked. It hasn't been repainted. Go ahead, Toyota, if you want, look it up. It hasn't been wrecked. It hasn't been repainted. So he goes to the Toyota dealer and says, hey, this is warped. What's happening here? They called it solar conversion. That, well, you parked it in the wrong place and it melted. And then it warped that too. Now, the only solar conversion I believe in is this. The solar panel is converting the sun's ray into electricity to charge the battery of the car. So, when my Celica sits for 3 months unused when I'm in Rhode Island, I can come back to Tennessee and voila! And notice something else. These are the original mirrors on the 94. They are not warped, even though they spent most of their life in the sun in Houston, Texas. And perhaps more telling, my wife's Matrix. All right, I bought it from a guy who had it the first 6 years in Phoenix, Arizona. And come to think of it, the Tacoma's not warped. The Lexus isn't warped. The Sienna isn't warped. Heck, even this 84 BMW isn't warped. Yeah, the paint's fading off of it because it's black, but it's not warped. Now, the owner of this car talked to the regional district manager of Toyota, and he wasn't going to do anything about it. The owner of this car said, well, guess what? You're not going to fix it. I'm bringing it tomorrow to Scotty. He's going to make a video on it. And you know what the regional manager said? He said, well, isn't that kind of vindictive of you? Shouldn't melt, especially on a 3-year-old car. Now, here's something I've been saying for years. Look, I've been working on cars. I'm closing in on half a century. And there's something that I've really seen. Unfortunately, I've seen it over and over again. You buy a car at a Toyota dealership, right? They're generally owned by Americans that want to make a lot of money. Now, the Toyota company, they generally want to stand behind their vehicles. And so you're not buying your car from Toyota. You're buying it from an American car dealership. And interestingly enough, the owner just told me that the service writer says, you know, we've seen a lot of these on these. We don't know what Toyota's going to do about it. Well, obviously, they don't plan on doing anything yet, but let's see what happens after this video gets on the internet. And in this case, obviously, the American dealers are just passing the buck on, blaming this warpage on the sun. The same sun that's been shining on these cars, and they're not warped at all. Well, if you remember, years ago, I made a video in Houston. She bought a brand new Tacoma. She was 68. Her husband was like 84. Thought, okay, it's kind of expensive, but she signs the deal. She gets her bill in the mail, and it turns out that when she figured the monthly payments out, she was paying $10,000 over what she had agreed to. Now, she had signed the contract, and she did have possession of the truck. Turns out the same salesman had done it to other people. She met other people. The guy did the same thing. She went to the Toyota dealer, and the manager said, I'm sorry, you signed the contract. You owe us the money. There's nothing we can do. Until old Scotty made the video, in which I say, look at this horrendous treatment of this elderly woman and her husband. They ripped them off for 10 grand. The dealer said there's nothing you can do. So in that video, not only did I show it all, but I said, look, ma'am, I advise you, contact Toyota Motor Company. Forget the American car dealership in Clear Lake, Texas. Contact Toyota. The next day, she goes to the Toyota dealer. The manager meets her and says, oh, ma'am, you don't have to contact Toyota. Here's a check for $10,000. Now, they didn't admit any wrong, because if they would have admitted wrong, they would have had to rip up the contract and start over. Instead, they refunded the 10 grand difference. There's a big legal difference in that. But none of this would have happened if I wouldn't have made that video, right? So now, here we go with melting plastic, right? Hopefully, they'll fix his melting plastic, but that won't satisfy me. So anyone out there, you got a Toyota like this, melting? Send me pictures. Come visit me. Let's see if they'll fix all your cars for free like they should. Sun warpage, yeah. It probably is sun warpage, right? But it shouldn't be doing that. It shows they're making them too cheap, and that's their problem. He loves the car, but he hates this. It's ridiculous. And fix the warpage on this. I mean, it's ridiculous. Well, all you naysayers learned that? No, I am not in the back pocket of Toyota telling you how great their products are, and having money shoved in my pocket by them. If you do have a problem, bring it to me. Very soon I'll get my 2 billionth view. It's a lot of people watching, right? And there's power in a lot of people. And I like helping people out. So stay tuned on this one, but if you've got your own, bring it on by. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Well, here's a little bit of irony as far as I'm concerned. Ford just said that they're going to be putting the lithium iron phosphate batteries in their Lightning pickup trucks instead of the lithium ion batteries. Well, to me, that's about the dumbest thing they could possibly do. And why? Because lithium ion batteries are used because they have more energy density. The lithium iron phosphate ones, instead of lithium ion, they're lithium iron phosphate. They're cheaper to make, but they have less energy. So guess what? The range of the Lightning will go down. Already, people have bought new ones that said, I pulled my trailer, I got 90 miles, and I ran out of electricity. Well, what's it going to be now? I pulled my car with my lithium iron phosphate F-150 Lightning. They keep telling us, oh, don't worry, we'll make batteries that get longer range, last longer, blah, blah, blah. So what's Ford doing? They're putting cheaper batteries in that have less range. Why are they doing it? Because it costs less money. They're worried about not having all the lithium and the precious metals that the lithium ion batteries need, because lithium iron phosphate batteries are cheaper to make and they have cheaper materials in them. But they have less range. So already they got a range problem with them if they tow to begin with, and you're going to put an even weaker battery in it? Sounds like a stupid idea. Of course, Ford just wants to produce these things by the millions, right? So they're going for the cheapest battery they can find. Is it the best one? No. You're going to spend all that money and you don't get the best battery. Sounds like they're going backwards in the electric car market to me. Yeah, I understand. They're going to be stuck with not enough lithium and not enough precious materials to make the lithium ion batteries. So they're going for a cheaper battery. Try to design a battery that lasts longer, not one that's cheaper to make. There's all kinds of cheap batteries out there. What people want are ones that have a longer range. That's the problem. Electric cars give people range anxiety. Why would you put a cheaper one? Now look, Elon's done it as Model 3. He's put the cheaper ones in and they have a lower range, right? Because they're cheaper to make. And he's worried about running out of materials too. But that's a step backward in electric car technology. Ones that don't go as far as the previous generation did. To me, that's just plain stupid. Kay Fleazy says, do car jacks fail? Was a car jack ever given when you were working on it? I remember it happened to me on a Chinese jack. It broke and I was jacking up. Strangely enough, my grandfather, when he was younger, he was working on a car and the jack failed and it broke his nose. And the rest of his life, he had a crooked nose. Now, I never had one hit me because I'm too fast at rolling out of the way. I'm kind of like one of those alligators. You look at them and you think, it's just slow, right? But for a very short period of time, they can go real fast and get something to eat. Well, I can get real fast out of the way because I don't want to get crushed, right? Big reason you don't want to buy a cheap jack. But on the other hand, in this case, you can't always put down Chinese-made products. They're all made in China. They're all Chinese, but they're good jacks. Now, I don't buy the cheap ones. Last one I bought was like $235. I don't go buy the cheapest ones they have, you know? I buy the quality ones. And, of course, you don't want to work under a car with a jack holding it up. That's why you get solid steel jack stands. You jack it up, then you put them on the jack stand, right? And then you lower the jack a little until the jack stand's nice and solid. And if you don't trust them, once they're on, to make sure, push the car a little, make sure it doesn't wiggle. If it doesn't wiggle, it stays, then work on the car. You can have the jack under there and a jack stand and have two systems. But you don't want to work on a car with any jack holding it up if you're going to be rolling under the car. You don't want to do that. Now, let's say you're lazy and you jack it up and you're doing a brake job. Well, if you take the wheel off and you're sitting outside of the wheel, if it goes down, the car will hit the ground, but it won't hit you because you're on this side and the brake's in front of you. But I mean, if you're crawling under there, changing oil, transmission, taking things apart, yeah, you want to use a jack stand. You wouldn't trust even the best ones because you never know. And you see the mechanics, so they got big lifts that go up. Those have auto lock, or some of the old ones, you hear them going up, they go click, click, click. Each time they click, they've locked at the next level. The electronic ones, a lot of them have pins. You can stick a pin in the motor, so once it's up, it can't come down until you pull a pin out. But it's always good to have jack stands if you do it yourself with a hydraulic jack. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.